Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Adventure on the Can-Do podcast. I'm your host, Jothy Rosenberg, aka the Incorrigible Entrepreneur, a professor turned entrepreneur and founder of 9 startup companies. On this show, I talk with business leaders and personal achievers. Adventures on the Can-Do explores the challenges and rewards of entrepreneurship, overcoming adversity, and where grit and perseverance can get you. Be inspired by others and push yourself along your path to success and fulfillment. My forthcoming book, Think Like a Startup Founder, based on my experiences, good and bad, seeks to help early-stage startup founders avoid the oh-so-many pitfalls founders can experience along the way. Adventures on the Can-Do adds to that the stories of many other founders, each with an amazing story of their own and a set of lessons learned that will be valuable to listeners. Before we jump into today's episode, just a reminder of how you can support this podcast. You can go to my website, jothyrosenberg.com, and sign up for my newsletter, and there you can see other episodes of this podcast. Also, please follow and rate us at podchaser.com, Adventures on the Can-Do. And with that behind us, let me introduce today's guest, Stephen Hudspeth. Stephen is an accomplished professional with a diverse career. His journey began with a significant 6-year tenure in the Army, where he developed key leadership and organizational skills. Transitioning to the civilian sector, Stephen then immersed himself in the restaurant industry, managing operations across 7 stores for 8 years. His adept skills in management and strategic growth were further demonstrated when he founded and expanded a painting franchise, growing it from inception to $1 million enterprise over 9 years. Most recently, Stephen has been focused on innovating in the business sector, spending the last 2 years developing a new venture called TMO Turbo, dedicated to refining and enhancing business processes. His multifaceted experience and entrepreneurial spirit make him a dynamic leader in any business context. And here is Stephen.
Joffrey, how's it going?
Good. So I'm glad to be doing this with you. I love to start off by asking people where they're originally from and where they live now.
Well, I grew up in Arkansas. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My dad was military, so kind of moved around just a little bit in my early years, but generally from about 7 or 8 years on to 18, I lived in Arkansas. I got up from Arkansas, realized that's not where I wanted to live the rest of my life. Love Arkansas, beautiful place. Opportunities are not as plentiful, at least where I grew up. So I uprooted myself to Tulsa, Oklahoma for aviation school. And Tulsa just grew on me. And so I am still in Tulsa since I was 18. I'm 38 now. So for about 20 years, it's been a really lovely place.
That's great. And so it's really blossoming in spring right now there.
Oh, it's gorgeous, man. We just got torrential rain after torrential rain after torrential rain. So now we are technically, our slogan, green country. It is green as green can be here right now.
Wow, that's cool. All right. Okay, so we're going to get into your entrepreneurial journey in a minute, but sort of one of the things that would be nice to know, because you started to talk about, your growing up years, is were there things that went on in your family and that sort of taught you to be resilient and not to quit and to go for it?
Absolutely. I grew up in the country, so, I actually, it's interesting when you go to a high school, which is the 3rd smallest school in the state, where it's like K through 12 is the entire school is 91 people. So tiny. Most people graduate with thousands or hundreds, and our entire school, 91. But one of the things that taught me was I get to be involved with everything, which was fantastic. But really what helped me not quit was my dad when I joined something like a sport. The requirement was if you joined something, whether it was chess club, whether it was basketball, baseball, it did not matter. You had to finish your original commitment. Now, after that, the season, the year, whatever's over, you can reevaluate what you want to do. but quitting was not an option growing up for anything you committed to. So I was always taught to make sure that I was very educated on what I committed to. If not, I was going to pay the price for my commitment because I was not allowed to quit. So I thought that I would say that probably gave me the most value in my younger years in that area. And then, I got to enlist. My dad and family let me enlist in the military at 17. So that, compounded that type of environment for me.
Because you can't quit that.
No, you really can't. And then, like I always tell people, the military actually helped me probably the most because I just seen so many people who either hated it or loved it, right? You didn't really ride the middle. And so it kind of made me go, it's what you make of it. Did you make the experience the best experience, or did you go, I got to get up and do this every day? All the, it is completely all mental, and how you handle your mental paralysis, I guess I'd say, is what you made of the environment. So that's really helped me a lot.
So you chose the Army. Was that the same service your dad was in?
Yes. So I was third generation. My grandpa actually jumped out of airplanes. My dad was an aviation mechanic, and my heart was set on flying the Apache because he worked on the Apache. So that was my heart, my intention when I got into the military. That's why I moved to Tulsa for aviation school. And, it was my goal, but that's just not how it played out.
No? Was that a big disappointment?
Part of it, definitely part of it was, and it went back to commitment and time, and I would have definitely gone that route, but I had recently came back from Iraq, and then when I transferred back to Oklahoma, I was going to have to go back to Iraq, so it would have been like a 2-year stint overseas, which the overseas part didn't bother me. It's all the stuff back home, and being gone a year was such a difficult issue. And then, there are definitely things that happen to family members while you're gone that you can't be a part of or control or do anything. So it was just, like I said, that long-term commitment decision. I had to go, I just didn't want to make that commitment to that another long stint like I thought I did because of what I felt like I was holding myself back of the rest of my life on that, possibly.
So what did you do when you got out of the Army? And how long were you in total? 4 years? Was it 4 years?
So I did 6 years in the reserves, 2 years inactive. I did 1 year overseas in 2005. So right after high school, I went overseas.
That's a big commitment. That's a lot of years.
It was, and it was a blast. I had a lot of fun with it, and loved the military. And again, I would have stayed in without a question, but I just was not interested in going back overseas. I just felt like I did my time there, and if it would have been 6 months, I would have been all about it. But a year is just a very, very long commitment, really long.
And so, when it was time and you got out, what did you do then?
So I went into the restaurant industry started off as like a manager because I felt like my skill set and my attitude and demeanor was really good for that industry, and it really was. Because I didn't get ruffled or razzled as a lot of people do, even though I was younger than most, because my experience and the feeling, I guess, of high pressured environment and going, well, I can die over here any day, right? It's not, there's no guarantee for tomorrow. So coming back into a more secure environment, more safe environment, even though, somebody's burger got messed up, it's like, look, $5 burger, we're going to get you. I'm going to take care of you. But I didn't let it bother me, because I just had such a great experience of understanding what real pressure was like at a very young age. So it really kind of helped me grow in that industry, and it really catalyzed. So, I had lots of opportunities as I moved up very quickly. So I went from at 20 years old being just a basic employee shift supervisor to by the time I was 25, I was running 7 restaurants for a company. So it really did give me the tools to be super successful in that environment. Because, everybody just knew that when stuff was going wrong, I would just we just work through it. That's just it. You just work through it. Because this is not life or death. You just work through it. If it's going to be late, we'll fix it, make it happy, and move on. It's not changing. It's not going to be the end of their day. It really is not. So, that mentality really helped me shape people around me.
So you were managing a number of restaurants in the food industry restaurants, and then something must have driven you to want to do your own franchise. and so tell us about what made you feel ready and you had the, the sort of desire, need to go, run one yourself. I mean, own one yourself.
So I think it all started way before any of that. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 19. And I say read, kind of put some age on myself, which would be funny for some people, is I had the CD set, right? So I listened to it in my car with CDs. So I listened to Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was like, yes, I want assets in life. That's what I want to develop. And so I worked to get my college debt paid down. That's why I went and stayed in the restaurant industry, because when I was getting ready to graduate, there were no aviation jobs. The bubble just collapsed 2008. Airlines were laying off. They were not hiring. So I was like, I'm going to stick here in the restaurant industry. I've got a great experience. I'm going to work my way up and pay down some debt, get some cash saved up, and buy my own business. So that was the plot from like 22 or so. And so right around 26, 27, that all kind of culminated into where it kind of went. And that was what springboarded me into looking for a business. And so we started looking for something in the restaurant industry because, I mean, I was really good at restaurant. My wife is really good at restaurants. So we're like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And that's not what we ended up doing. Life's about curves and interesting twists. And we were talking to a consultant, and every restaurant we really wanted, they wanted a lot of cash. They wanted like $125,000, $150,000. And we only had 80. And I was not interested in getting a loan, going into debt to try to get that kind of taken care of. So the consultant we worked with is really good, and he kind of steered us to other service-based industries. And we ended up picking paint, mostly because when we were looking at it, we looked at, what is the reputation of a painter, which we found out was not really good overall. And then how do they advertise? They really didn't. I couldn't figure out how to get a painter in 2015 when I was getting ready to buy a business, and so that means there's really a lot of room for improvement in the service-based part, which I know a lot about. And there's improvement in marketing because nobody knows how to get one. And then there's nobody really known as the best in Tulsa. So I was like, there's 3 number 1 spots that I can fill with my business if I go out and do it.
So you had to come up with use some of your money to get into the franchise. So you took that leap, and you did that, right?
Yep. And that kind of culminated into that was the most shocking thing, I think, when I bought a business or a franchise model. There's lots of great franchises. I love my franchise. But I came from a restaurant industry, and restaurants, they know their stuff. That's the funny thing. Like, if you don't know your stuff, you're out of business within 6 months because your food costs have to be in line. Your labor costs have to be in line. You have to have those things dialed in. If you don't, obviously you're going out of business because the margins are razor thin on food because it's mostly about volume. And so when I got to my franchise industry, there just wasn't the same data. The tools and stuff to bring all of it together wasn't there. And so that led me to all the development of processes and diving into books of like the E-Myth and, the entree leadership and how to really find these tools, build these tools that I was just gifted with in the restaurant industry. Now I'm like, okay, we're not measuring food costs here. So how do we need to measure what? Oh, conversion rates, slippage rates, ROIs. Okay. How do I, was the guy's time on a job waste or not? So it was just a whole bunch of stuff that I had to figure out, but at least I had a background of how valuable that data was. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out how to track that stuff.
Okay. And so you owned how many? You owned one store, right?
Yes, one franchise location in the whole Tulsa area.
One location. Yeah.
Yeah. I tried 2, but it didn't quite work out well.
Okay, so you focused on one, and you grew it. And how big did you grow it to be?
So our biggest year was 998, 997, right around there. So just under $1 million. And, that came from honestly all the years experience, but really the biggest value I learned was to meet people. And those are your best, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. Lead generator or connections to better clients, more qualified clients. A lot of times In the beginning, I'd do all kinds of discounts and offers and stuff like that. And discounts and offers are fine, but sometimes you can really attract not the client you're quite looking for if you're trying to be a pristine type company. A lot of people who are affluent or kind of understand the concept of, I don't want to understand there's cheap, but there's a problem with cheap sometimes, and cheap can be real expensive if I have money too. So, networking really built a lot of my business, and that's what I've really leveraged a lot to grow it to that number. By the time my last number we looked at was roughly $500,000 plus in just word of mouth, repeat, and referrals. So it's all about the reputation, how we communicate with people, how we handle our situations, because stuff goes wrong on painting all the time. I mean, construction jobs, they break stuff all the time. And so it's really not what goes wrong. It's how do we handle it? How do we dissolve the situation, diffuse it, dissolve it, and then get somebody happy to come back or tell their friends about us. So that's kind of what I valued from the military, which kept me even keeled through the food industry and then into my other businesses that I have now. It's all about, this is not life or death. We're going to get this taken care of. Let's make you happy if we can. And if not, I understand. How do we leave this so at the end of the day, you don't hate me? And if you do, okay. At least I can look to myself in the mirror and go, I gave it all. They're not going to die. They're going to be fine. Their life's going to go on.
Okay. So you have your current company is one that you created out of your own head. But you had all this experience to kind of, lead you to the need for this. And it's a software company, correct?
Yes. So this came out of, again, where we were talking earlier, where, a lot of business owners, like I said, even a franchise business model, which I've learned going into this industry a lot, that, they don't have all the answers, which is, I just assumed, we always put these people or these businesses on pedestals that they don't necessarily need to be on because they're humans just like we are. Unless they've been around 50 years, they're still figuring stuff out. So, as long as they're trying, that's really all that matters at the end of the day. And what I took from all that stuff I've learned is that, okay, well, what did I really struggle with? And what did I want to improve upon? And so every year I improved. And then 3 years ago, I wanted to improve my communication with my clients, right? How do I not waste time on people who are not necessarily my clients, but give them the attention that they wanted at that particular time? And how do I amplify myself? So we developed our tool, which we use, which automates all that stuff. And so what we did is we built all these packages and processes that most small businesses should have, but they don't. And so I was like, man, if I was a painter getting ready to launch my business, I would love to be able to focus on my business because, you start a business, you've got to learn how to market. You've got to go hire guys. You got to fire guys. You got to be on the job site. Oh, guess what? You've got to call leads. Oh, to get money, you got to follow up with leads and you got to work on your business. You got to think of other things. And so, all these things come at you as a small business owner. And one of the things that adds obviously the most value for us is chasing down leads, because obviously that's our dollars coming in, or chasing down follow-ups of clients that we've committed to. Those are dollars to come into the business. So what we've done is we've automated all that outreach for people so that, you don't have to worry about it. If the client answers you, you can respond to the client and then interact with them when it's fit for them. But since they've made that initial connection, they're interested. So let's maximize that interest. They might have not been interested in week 1. It might be week 3 where they finally get to go schedule that appointment. Well, most small business owners don't try to reach out to people at the 3rd week that they came into them as a lead. Once, twice, maybe 3 times. They might do it 4 or 5 in the first week, and then after that, they're done. So what we've helped business owners do is automate that process. Go, here you go. Boom. They're going to get reached out to for a year. Oh, you've completed? Oh, great. They're going to get reached out to it for a year. Oh, and then you don't understand the processes and nurturing sequence. Well, here are some ways you could look at that. And we kind of give them those processes that they kind of talk about in E-Myth and stuff that most people don't sit there and write down and try to figure out, okay, this is what I want my client to do next. So we give them that tool to at least springboard their business into action, into life, so it's that leg up that I would have killed for when I first started a franchise model in myself. So that's kind of what led to it and the area that we saw as a fit.
Okay. So classic, good scenario of you're in a market, you understand the market well, then you see something that's a real need, you wish you'd had it. So essentially, in your head are a set of requirements for what this software had to do. You're not a trained programmer. Where'd you find people who could build it for you?
So my business partner is a programmer, and we kind of went through it all together as kind of a growing pain issue. So that was kind of where we got with it. I got the right person through, again, the beauty networking, right? So I met this guy 2017 when I was in my painting business. I met him through my networking environment for my painting business. 5 years later, we're getting together on a business, and, we're doing a business together in a whole different segment that 5 years ago, had I not done networking, marketing, connecting with people, I wouldn't even be able to leverage the connections and opportunity I had to make this happen.
So you did it together, and that partnership has been productive, and it's continuing. You guys have been in business how long now?
We're going on our third year now. So really,
3 years.
Since we didn't really actually technically start the business until last year, because the first year was all development, right? Trying it out on ourselves. There was no resale, none of that. We were just focused on building it out to make it as great as possible so that it delivered the most value. I was at the most vertically integrated system because, again, we call time the enemy. So if we save you even 1 second a day, you add that up for 356 days, that's a lot of time added to your time. So that is everything we focus on is, okay, even on other tools like, I need to go look at my Google Analytics. I click on this button, I open up this page, and I've got to log in. Now I get to see my Google Analytics. I click here to get here. I mean, it's there, but it's not convenient. So when it's not convenient, we tend not to look at stuff when it takes too much time to oversee. And so that was our real big focus. What is the stuff that most businesses need or want, and how do we make it simple to oversee and see?
So you've kept your role at the painting franchise, right?
Yes.
You still own that.
Yes.
And so you're kind of your first level of test customer. You're your own customer, right?
Yes.
You're the lighthouse customer, or or maybe you're just the tester of it, and you find all the bugs. I don't know, but you've expanded. I assume you've expanded in the 2+ years to other franchise owners. Are they all in the same? Are they all painting franchise owners, or have you gone beyond painting now?
So we've got gone beyond painting. We've got, a dozen or so painting, I think 15 or 20 painting franchise models. We added dog training models. So we got several dog trainers that we kind of do. Mm-hmm. We're working on maids. So that's our new little target that we're building out with maids and using. They've got some really cool stuff where they don't necessarily want to go in and see somebody's house. They go off square footage. So, we're actually working on some stuff with training GPTs for them to actually do the quoting, do the answering of the questions and stuff like that. And then they can really be as hands-off as they need to be, because it's what a lot of clients actually technically want. They don't want to talk to somebody because they don't want to feel sold. They don't want to get that pressure of being sold. So if you can make it where it's more in their light or their want, you can actually get more clients who might be more interested right then if you got a system that's going to answer their questions and then they're done. So that's the other one. And then we're working with a financial planner on building out models for the financial industry and stuff like that. So we got multiple different models we're working on verticals for. But always the hurdle when you're working on models like that is trying to make sure you've got a good processes in place. And so some owners tend not to let you put good processes in place. Why, I don't know, but owners are owners and they do their own thing, but that's how we learn about those industries, and we can improve them even if that particular owner doesn't, have doesn't really go with what we think would be a good fit for the industry. We at least can build a model that we can go, okay, hey, let's meet with somebody else. We can give them a discounted price. Let's get their knowledge and make their industry better. And so, that's how we're building. We're finding one or two people we're working with to build models for them, grade whether the model's a good model or not, and then kind of stacking on that.
So you've expanded into other what you're calling models, but it's other domains, and that's sort of I think of that maybe as kind of scaling horizontally, because you're covering painting and maids and financial planning, and then are you expanding geographically? Are you still really local in Tulsa, or have you gone beyond that?
Oh, we're well beyond Tulsa. We're in Florida, Colorado, Michigan, Ohio. I mean, that's the beauty. That's what I loved about the software industry and this type of environment was it's everywhere. And so now I can leverage and meet massive amounts of people versus being, Tulsa was fantastic. I love building a paint company, knowing that connecting with people and learning about what they want and what their needs are helped me leverage my painting company. So I'm getting to do the same thing all over again in my software company. But the reach and scale is so much different and a lot funner.
And what are your ultimate goals for? Oh, and you know what? We haven't said the name of this. It's TMO Turbo.
Yes. So it came from my partner's. He was like Tulsa marketing online type thing, and we're like, all right, so we'll just call it TMO for Tulsa, and got some marketing into it, and it's online, and then we just called it Turbo. So it kind of turbos your business. It adds lots of, if done right, and you amplify it, it's like putting a turbocharger on your engine. Literally, if you've got a business, a prime example, we've got a case study on our YouTube channel where a business had a call center group of about 5 individuals who made calls and scheduled appointments. They booked about 34 appointments a week. Well, when we put our turbo onto their business, those guys quit making those outbound calls, and the system was scheduling 84 appointments a week. No outbound calls, 84 appointments were already booked. So, if you've got certain things, marketing and pieces in place, the tool actually kind of puts everything in a really tight funnel, and really spins up the energy of a business. So, they'll grow, they'll more than probably double their revenue at minimum, because they've already doubled their appointments with no extra marketing expense or anything else. And that was just one area that'll give you some. There were others.
That'll give you some great testimonials when they double their revenues. And what are your goals for this, and how long do you think that it'll take to achieve those goals?
So my goal, obviously, people always kind of curious what I think, how I go about it. But my goal is to impact as many people as I can. That's the biggest goal. I run a small business. I've owned a painting franchise. I know how the margins work. I know the stress level of what it feels like to try to, run that engine, get that going, and handling all these different things. And, how a lot of these tools that are fantastic tools. Salesforce is a great tool, but it doesn't add value. It adds data, and data is valuable, but it's only valuable if you know how to use the data. So although they do great pieces, they're very complicated for a small business owner to use. And so, for me in my life is, how many people can I help simplify their life? How can we give them time to get back at home? Right. We were talking about my paint business, right? I did $97,000 or $98,000, right, with myself and an admin. So I went out, I was working 6 hours a week, 8 hours a week, running 6 to 10 estimates a week. And, the admin coordinated everything to my CRM. My guys did all their stuff, but, I was able to do it completely part-time. It was not a long-term commitment. So I want to be able to try to give that to other people. And the more people I can give that to, the happier I'll be on that. It's because money comes and goes, but if I can give people the ability to get back in control of their life and have an understanding of their business and know what's going on in their business, that I know 99% don't know, 98% don't know. I've seen so many people who fired estimators or staff because they didn't realize that the staff wasn't really responding to SMSs that were sent to them. They just assumed that the staff got an SMS, they replied to it. They assumed a call came in, they answered it. Well, when we rolled out the tool, that was not, I got to say, at least 80% fire somebody. It's not a good thing to say, but again, as a business owner, I had my dog trainer friend who was like, Steve, I'm struggling on what's going on. So we go to the reporting section. I go, well, you had 1,000 calls over the year and your admin answered 10% of them. It was like 100 calls for a whole year. There's a big hiccup, man. How do you fix it? Right here. So giving them that insight, which is painful to see it. I mean, it hurt my heart, man, to tell him that and show him that, but now he has it. He was able to make some corrections, and guess what? Now he's enjoying life again. He's getting a little bit more traction and stuff's going his way. So, that's my pride, my joy, and the whole thing is, how do I help enough people? You help enough people, and man, it just feels good.
Well, that's great. That's a great story. Well, we talked earlier about, where some of your drive came from, but I always like to also just talk about, grit a little bit, because anyone who sort of just decides, I'm going to start this company. I see a problem. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to do this. Or earlier when you said, okay, I'm going to make the leap and I'm going to own this painting franchise. And you were in the military, so there's always the discussion of grit can't leave out, the experiences of being in the military, especially being overseas where there was a conflict going on. So, but, don't let me put words in your mouth. Where do you think your grit has come from?
I mean, the grit for me, I think, comes from understanding. I mean, I've read a lot of books in psychology and mentally and stuff like that. And grit to me, and I even read the book Grit. It was a great book, by the way. If you've not read it, it's a good book. Which was written by...
Are you talking about Angela Duckworth's book? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I believe that's it. Yeah, just female psychologist. Again, I'm really good at parts of books. Like I see stuff visually, but names don't come in visually. So I'm like, I remember the name of the book's Grit, and I remember it was really good. But, I think if you ask me, grit comes from always trying to challenge yourself. People who don't push outside that comfort zone, they can't develop grit, because coming from grit comes from failure or challenging yourself. And one of the things I read in the book was, just challenge yourself to brush your teeth with your opposite hand. How difficult is that to stay consistent with, right? Do you even do it the whole time? I mean, it sounds simple, but it's an awkward experience, and you really kind of training and teaching your body to be used to awkward experiences.
I know, because I had a bandage on I'm right-handed. I had a bandage on it, and I use an electric toothbrush, so it really should be easy, but you're just not as coordinated. You're not used to it. You've got a pattern. It's one of those challenges. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a small challenge. And like I said, I embrace that challenge periodically at different times and different things. But again, that's on a small scale. The bigger scale is, going out and meeting somebody. Challenge for me, like going outside my comfort zone a little bit. We did in Tulsa, it's called City of the Lights. And so last night we went out and, we fed the homeless, and, not something I've done a lot of in my time. And I really enjoyed the experience, but again, not my comfort zone, not my area of really knowledge or anything. Got invited and said, hey, you know what? This is something I've not done. This is going to be a challenge. I feel in my gut that I'm like, man, this feels like an awkward thing. I want to do it. It's awkward. Means I've not challenged myself to make it a norm or even a process. So if we look for even the small things to challenge ourselves, we start building a little bit more grit, a little bit more challenge. And then you really amplify it, going to the gym, finding, routines and patterns that challenge you to be better each day than you were the other day. So grit's a complicated thing. And, I believe, in my opinion, you can develop it, but you've got to want to develop it. You got to take the small steps, because there's no giant leap to, I can get through everything. Everything's just one little step after another, just building blocks of life.
I couldn't agree more. Well, this has been great, and I think listeners are going to really enjoy getting to meet you and hearing your journey and your philosophies. This has been, I really appreciate your time. This has been great, Stephen.
I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, when I reached out to you, like I said, it was all the intentions of learning about you, and it was phenomenal. And let me look where that brought me into a podcast that I didn't even know existed. So, you know, it's that challenge. We were just talking about that grit and challenge. It wasn't like I just wanted to reach out to people and go, hope this person answers me. Oh, they did. Now, man, I hope this meeting goes well. No, you just challenge yourself to get through those things. And so I want to thank you and tell you how much I appreciated meeting you. I mean, like I said, that was a lot of value to my life of meeting people and seeing what they've gone through and the stuff we talked about. So I want to thank you, man.
Well, you're most welcome. And when my book comes out, when my book comes out, I will be sending you a copy as a thank you for being on this podcast.
I look forward to it. I love books, love them to death. And I will turn it into an Audible, just so you know. I'm a big listener guy. It sticks better. So I'll use my Speechify and I'll take pictures of the page and I'll have it read it to me as I do other things. So I'm going to turn it into my own Audible, but I'm going to read it. I look forward to it.
The publisher doesn't commit to turning it into an Audible audiobook until they're sure it's reached some sales level. So I would like to see that as well. But you should definitely do it for yourself, and then the publisher will hopefully do it for everybody. That's going to be a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Adventures on the Can Do. Please share and like us on your social media channels. This is Jothy Rosenberg, and I'll be back with a new episode every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to check out the show notes for additional resources and links. Hasta la vista.